Hello again, and welcome to the Noble Father podcast. I am your host, Theophilus, and today is February the 26th. And if I were to convert the time, today would be officially my wife's birthday. And so I wanted to wish my wife, Echo, a happy birthday. Thank you for supporting me and being patient with me through many years of trying to make entrepreneurial pursuits work. And I know that I've been saying for a long time, something's happening, or we just got to be patient. I wouldn't say that we're there yet, but you have been a tireless support, and I very much appreciate you. And so today, wish you a happy birthday. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Today's topic comes from been getting back into reading and getting back into the flow of things. Been dealing with some burnout, and such that whenever you do go through burnout, you kind of lose your way a little bit, and things start to slip, routines start to fall, and you get to this place of malaise and stagnation and it was a good reminder to recalibrate. I wouldn't say that I'm absolutely there yet, but I am getting there slowly. And this weekend I'll have a trip where I'll be going to Texas, and I do feel like that's going to be a good time to really disconnect and really spend some time thinking through my goals, thinking through getting in contact and in communication with God again, and not that I don't do that right now, but just like be very intentional and be quiet about the direction that this work is headed in. If you're listening to this on the audio waves, I do upload these onto YouTube as well. And you can see my face while I do these podcasts, and you're welcome to check out the content there as well. Yeah, today's episode is it came about from a book that I've been reading. I just started up, called The Coddling of the American Mind. And if you Google this, you'll find the book, but also an article that was written by two researchers looking into the effects of this. I really don't know. I mean, I'm not sure if it's a rhetoric or some kind of game plan to really systematically destroy civilization, and it's something that has been in the back of my mind, right? I've been seeing it a lot of different things happening in our world that is pointing to that, is showing that, it's leading to that, and it's scary because as parents we should definitely be careful. This is very much the future that our children will grow up in, and they are part of these systems out there that are preaching and are in a position of authority to guide and lead our children. And if we're not careful as parents, and if we're not diligent and proactive, we will fall victim to them as well. There are multiple ways to go about this, but I wanted to share really a quote that I saw in the book at the very start, and it was the very first quote, which is so. It was, when I read it, I was like, wow, like it's just so amazing. And you've probably heard variations of this in my podcasts before. And so the quote goes, "Prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child." And that quote immediately made me think of, the prayers that we do for the storms that we face in life. Many of us would pray for the storm to subside, or for the waves to die down, or for the rain to slow down, when in reality, we should be praying for strength to overcome anything that comes our way. One of the cool illustrations about prayer is that you ask God for strength, and so God sends trials and tribulations your way to strengthen you, not out of nowhere give you muscles and the strength to conquer these sorry, it's not without work to strengthen you. And so the ideal of prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child. Which one sustains the child longer and prepares them for anything that comes their way, right? And so if we know that the road is going to be difficult ahead, then preparing the child for the road is better than trying to pave that road for our children. And society and parents nowadays have very much just tried to prepare the road for the child. And this doesn't serve anybody. This doesn't serve my children, doesn't serve their future, doesn't serve your future. It's all connected. And so today, I wanted to, talk about some best practices about raising your children, preparing them for the road. And these are not, and I am not I am not an expert. I am not somebody who does, these things to a T. I am just as imperfect as the next person, just as imperfect as the listener. So, I want you to consider for yourself what is best in your situation. You understand the context of your children and your upbringing and your leading of your children. And these are things that I am holding myself to about as best as I can. And I'm just sharing them here with you. This is, it's a very humble journey for all of us. I don't think anybody can say they are an active expert on something like this. And if they are, man, I would tell you to be careful to, on how to listen to these people. Not everybody is who they say they are. So one of the first best practices when it comes to preparing a child for the road is, right now they're walking with us, right? We're holding hands with our children. They are on path, the road that we are on right now, that our parents prepared us for. We are walking with our children in. And so, yeah, business hasn't been going well. My children will suffer the consequences of that. They will learn. They will be a part of that journey. Can't afford groceries, a kid's going to learn that. And one of the most important things as parents that we must do is, and this is something that has come up recently for us, is learning to teach our children to teach our children, but to let them learn on the smaller mistakes rather than taking away the opportunity for them to learn and to grow through this issue, through this problem. Why smaller mistakes? Smaller mistakes now beats them having to learn it on the bigger mistakes in the future. So something as inconsequential as, breaking a dish in the kitchen. It's a small lesson. It's a tiny lesson that doesn't, it's not life-threatening. It's not the end of the world for this child if it happens. So you're picking your battles, right? As parents, we pick our battles. We don't, obviously we got to teach them the importance of, crossing the road safely, right? We don't just let them figure that out. We need to guide them for the first few steps and then let them figure out afterwards. So there's smaller mistakes that can be learned. There's smaller lessons that can be learned that don't jeopardize our children. Teaching them letting them go through the smaller mistakes, like forgetting to ask for change, at the store, and walking away. And let's just say they, didn't get, they were supposed to get back $5 in change. That's a good small lesson to learn rather than something later down the road that's like $50,000 or $100,000 mistake that they, that could detrimentally set them back. So teaching them the smaller mistakes. What are opportunities for you to let them learn? And it's so easy for us to shelter them and hold them and coddle them, which is what the premise of the book is. You're coddling these children. They're not going to learn. And what kind of adults are they going to become when you coddle them all through their life? Number 2 is the average of the two parents. Last few weeks I've been kind of really cluing into that of like, my children are very much it's a mathematical equation almost of how the average, like, of who they are. They are very much like me and very much like my wife. And we, of course, and as it should be, right? That is the way God intended for it to be, that they would get the best of us and even some of the worst of us in who they become. They are around us all the time. We are walking this path together, and they are going to be the average of both. And so you need to really clue into that, right? Is that what is your responsibility as your half? You are in charge of yourself. You are in charge of taking care of yourself. I am the father. My wife is the mother. I cannot step into the mother side. She cannot step into the father side. There are unique responsibilities for each of us, and we must dictate our own realm with dignity and to the best of our ability. And so if your children are the average of the both of you, you have a huge responsibility. You are called beyond just you. You are in charge of taking care of yourself. And this is very apparent. You go to a birthday party, and I would encourage you to observe children and how they are, and just see what they are like, and not to be judgmental or anything, but you can very easily come to a conclusion of, well, I can imagine what a child's upbringing is like in their family unit, in their family home. It is very, very telling. And that is something that we need to clue into. What are things that we could improve upon? And this is what we're constantly doing and trying to do better of. The third best practice that I've seen is, and something that I always have to remember, is that my example speaks more volume than the words of advice that I give my children. Nobody wants to be a hypocrite. And if you ask my wife, she'd probably say this about me, is, very easily I can be hypocritical. There are things that I'll tell my kids not to do that I am not setting a good example in. And that is very humbling. That is extremely humbling. And knowing that, I have to first do this. Very much this journey of fatherhood has reminded me a lot of coaching. Coaching is one in which, if I am not willing to step into a difficult conversation with somebody, how can I encourage somebody else to do that? It's very much I got a log in my eye when I'm trying to help somebody with a splinter in theirs. I must first deal with my log before I can help somebody else with their issue. And so as a father, that's the same thing, is that I need to first swallow my own Kool-Aid, do my own work before encouraging my children to be the best in theirs. That's the way God intended it to be. And it devalues your word, and it invalidates your example if you are not doing that, and you're demanding your children and making it a big deal in their lives to change it. If you're not changing your ways, why are your children going to change their ways, right? They're going to see that it's okay to say one thing but do another entirely. And that is a dangerous thing to raise your child in. That's a coddling in itself, right? You almost allowing yourself to escape from the mistakes, making everybody else's mistake magnified, and you're not dealing with your own issues. And very much, like the coaching side of things, best practice number 4 is excuse me, is asking questions more than providing the answers. So questions, not answers. This is an example that I've given before. And if you've ever listened to past episodes, you've heard me talk about the college professor that I had when I was in criminal justice program, a Mr. Daryl Keene. He was very good at getting more information out of us and allowing us to critically think through a situation. And he would always ask us a single question of, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And he was getting us to think to the bedrock of any given situation or dilemma. And this really helped me grow my way of thinking of questioning things. Well, why are there so many drug addicts? Okay, so why is there a drug supply issue? And now why are there so many drugs laced with fentanyl? Okay, so why is there such thing as a safe supply now? And legal injection sites. Who's behind legal injection sites? What could be the rationale behind these things? What does that mean? And what does that mean? And keep going down until you figure out, this is why we're doing what we're doing now. This is why they believe what they believe. And I do this with fatherhood is go to the bedrock with certain things. And when I look at the coddling of the American mind, and it's not just the American mind, it's the modern mind. It's why are we here now? Why are we doing things this way now? And why are we coddling civilization? How did we get here? It's a very interesting thing. Anyways, questions, not answers. Asking our kids, what does this mean? Instead of just giving them the answers, right? It's like coaching. I can't just give them the answers. It's gonna be more sustainable and it'll last longer and mean longer if they are able to come to that conclusion themselves. Is there a way for me to ask a question in such a way where they come to that conclusion for themselves, and rather than me providing that answer? Because if I don't show my children how to question these things or how to get to the bedrock of something, then they're just going to believe what they're being told. And that is not what we should do as parents. That is not our responsibility. We must enable our children to independently think and to form opinions and not be subject to feelings. That's one of the things about this book also, is it talks about feelings, the dangers of listening to our feelings, and why we must not be politically correct about it, why it's good to have hurt feelings, why it's good to have an opposing viewpoint and different varying opinions, and why that must be openly discussed, right? We can't just, because my feelings are hurt, then we can't openly discuss something. And so the position that you hold is truth and gospel, and that's it. And we must run with that because you feel it is truth for you. Truth is not moldable or bendable to somebody's will. Truth is truth. And you've heard me reiterate that again and again. And as parents, we must lead that. We must show that example. It is imperative that we show what truth is to our children, and emulate what that is. Because this world is like, when you believe in nothing, you fall for anything. And we're really at a point where we fall for everything. You can choose what you identify as, which, that's another discussion, right? Is that truth? And we're seeing this breakdown of, okay, so if I can say whatever I want and believe whatever I want, then there's no limit to what I can believe. And this is the dangerous slope that we're in now, is if somebody can dictate who or what they are, then it opens the door to so many things. Okay, pedophilia. Somebody can identify as a child and wear diapers and have sexual relations with a child, or necrophilia with dead people, bestiality. Why not? It's my feeling. My feeling is truth. This is what I identify as. And so you must respect my feelings, right? You can imagine, okay, so where do we draw the line then? If we scratch that line and say that it can move and now it's fluid and you can do whatever you want and say whatever you want, feel and be whoever it is you feel like, where do you draw the line? There's no closing of that anywhere. So we must be careful. Number 5. And number 5 is biblical. Biblical as in there's truth. This is truth. What is truth? And so I'm going to give you truth. I'm going to give you 3 verses Bible talks about, and it's very much around this topic. And these are age old, right? This is truth. This is truth as I see it. You may not believe it, but I'm not here to convince you. Just listen to it, because you can take away knowledge. If you are a fool, you will turn this off now, and you will go about your way however you choose. But if you're a wise person, even if you don't believe what I believe, you would stay and listen and try to distill for yourself what this is for you. And so I encourage you, come at this with an open mind. Just don't think about the repulsiveness of the word or the mention of God. It's just sit here and try to be wise for 1 second and think about what is being said in the Bible. Because I can learn from Buddha. I can learn from Islam. I'm a Christian myself, but I can learn from even the wise people of those places, right? Varying opinions, I can learn from them and distill knowledge for myself. And that's what I encourage for you. If anything, this practice is great for our children because we'd be raising fools if we tell them that because we don't share the same viewpoint as somebody, we shouldn't listen to them and not distill wisdom for ourselves, right? It is said that a wise man can learn from a fool. A fool cannot learn from a wise man. And so be a wise man. Be a wise person here as I share these with you. And these are very practical and also very knowledgeable. It's very wise sayings. And I don't want to not discourage. I don't want to discount that from you. And so please listen to this and take away for yourself what this may mean. The first verse I wanted to talk about is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Very practical verse. I've read it before on this podcast many times. Our roles as parents is to train up our children. We need to show them, right? We are preparing them for the road, right? We are showing them the way that they should go. Because even when they are old, they will not depart from it. We tell them, hey, stay on the road, stay on the road, stay on the road. Keep iterating that fact of staying on the road. What do you think are the chances that they're going to try their best as they grow older to stay on that road? Pretty high, I would say. And where does that come from? Well, it came from mom and dad reiterating that point, staying on the road. Hebrews 12:7-11 says, it is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as it seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And this is the very much leaning into the discomfort, right? The resistance that you feel working out, the rejection of feeling as you go to do what you need to do, what is required of you, and that discipline seems painful rather than pleasant in the moment, but later it produces, right? It yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. And so this is very much the first thing, the smaller mistakes. Teaching our children in the smaller mistakes, the painful lessons in youth on the smaller mistakes, rather than the big problems later on. And later it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness, right? And so then whatever comes their way in the future, they are better equipped and able to face it whenever it comes. I mean, that's as applicable as anything, right? And it's giving the father the responsibility, hey, you have a child, you must discipline them. If you want them to go about life proper, you would discipline them. Or else if you don't, you're raising illegitimate children. You haven't been responsible to them. You haven't been doing your role as a father to these children. You are setting them up for failure. And thus, you are illegitimate children and not sons. Right? It makes sense. What do we call a child without a father? A bastard. Right? You're creating bastards. This is not what God intended for us as fathers. The last verse I wanted to read is Psalm 127, 3-5. It says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate." Children are a heritage from the Lord. They're gifts for us. We are called to be their earthly parents, as it says in the verse prior to. We are gifted with the responsibility to raise them in the way of the Lord. And I really like the analogy of arrows in the hand of a warrior. If I think about arrows, but not in the hand of a warrior, an arrow on the ground that has no bow and nobody to draw the string back and nobody training with an arrow, it is useless. It'll just sit there and it's not much of a weapon without a hand. And so our children are these arrows. They are called to go into the world and be a light and to be an example and to share God's love with other people. If we do not draw them back, if we do not use them and show them that they are an arrow, they're about as useless as stick to be burned in a fire. It's just they're nothing. And so it requires us to use this arrow and to show our children how to use it, because they're going to one day have arrows in their quivers. And it says, "Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them," right? How blessed are you whenever you have ammunition? When you run out of ammunition, it's a dangerous place to be, right? You have nothing to fight against the enemy with. And this last part I've been trying to reconcile. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. You can imagine the shame, when you're negotiating with your enemy at the gate, when you're initiating in a conversation, the terms of battle, and just imagine how embarrassing or how much ammunition we give our enemy if our children are used against us, right? Let's just say that we were betrayed by our children and we did something that pushed our children away, and they made a big scene, and the enemy found out, and they'd use that to put you down and show you that you are a terrible leader. And I just imagine that situation, and it's almost like giving my enemy the ammunition to put me down and to discourage me and to laugh in my face, right? And to demoralize my army, demoralize me in my work, right? And the devil is one in which we know it comes to kill, to lie, steal, and destroy, right? And it's we're giving him the ammunition. It's a foothold for our enemy, for the enemy to use against us, right? It'll challenge our leadership. It'll challenge our identity as the leaders of our family, right? Because the devil's going to be like, yeah, look how you raised your child, right? Look at the example of the life that he's living. And you call yourself a leader? And you call yourself, children of God? Like, look at the example you did, right? Look at what kind of parent you are. You're the worst. How can you lead? You're not a leader. Go back to following, right? And that's no place to be. That's no good place to be, right? It'd be so easy to believe it because it's some of it is true. Yeah, you failed. You failed in your role and responsibility with your children. And which is why we're doing this in the first place, which is why we have a podcast. Avoid those problems later on. Do it now. The sooner the better. The earlier the better. You have them young. You have their attention. Take advantage and lead your children down the right road. Prepare them for the road to come. Don't prepare the road for them. Don't show them which step to take. Ask them, what step should you take here? Use your own thinking. Use your own judgment. Discern for yourself what is the way forward. Seek the Lord, right? In my household, I ask my children, seek the Lord. What does the Lord say? Where is your heart? God gave you a heart, but he is inside your heart. What does he say you should do in this situation? And that is what this life, this temporal plane on this planet is for, leading them down the right path, setting them up for success, and showing them how to make smart, spirit-filled decisions, how to lead with discernment and seeking God's advice on where we go. If you think you know the best for yourself, let's see where that gets you. It's not going to get you anywhere great because you don't know. This life is not about you. You are not a God. I don't care how many minutes or how many hours you meditate and you find out that you are the God of this universe. You are not the God of the universe. You just aren't. And this is the last point I want to make, is don't let others raise your children. Not schools, not technology, not influencers. Don't let any of those places raise your children. There's a big difference between allowing them fully to be influenced by school. Now, you might ask, well, Theo, aren't your kids in public school? Aren't you letting other people teach your children? Yes, but there's also a difference in how we approach it whenever they come home, seeking to understand what they learned through their day, asking them on specific terms, what are things that was taught to you today? Yeah, did you believe that? I recently asked my children, what do you do if what they teach in school goes against what you believe biblically and what God says truth is? It's a very valid question, right? There's a very big difference between letting society teach them and show them everything that it deems as truth, right? Than me trying to help them figure, at least in the early stage of questioning those things, right? I asked them, schools would probably say you came from a monkey, right? What happens if all your friends all believe that and you believe otherwise? And God says this is what we came from. And everybody laughs at you for what you believe. And it goes against what everybody else thinks. And it's the unpopular decision. You can see how I'm asking a question. I'm letting them come to that conclusion themselves to figure out what's the way out of this. Because it enables them to think through a situation. This is their identity. Who am I? God says I am this. The world is going to try to take those things away. It's going to try to take away the truth. It's going to say that you're ridiculous for believing in these things. How do I create a unwavering child? How do I make him to be headstrong? Make my daughter to be headstrong, right? And to stand firm on what they believe, on the foundation of truth. That is my responsibility. And that's what I feel and what I've discerned in my spirit as what I should do in my household. And so I hope you distill that for yourself. What is it that you are holding your children to? Because if everything is believable, then everything is truth, right? If there's nothing, if truth is subjective and it can bend to somebody's will, then everything is true. And we know that that is not true. We know that that is not possible. And so what is truth? Are you holding your children to that truth? Are you showing them how to find truth? This is not a problem that we can afford to be relaxed on. Are you willing to be wrong? Right? And this is the thing about the world we live in, right? I've said it already, right? When you believe in nothing, everything is believable. Anything is true. And this absence that we have in being fathers creates this vacuum within our children. And it creates opportunities for our children to hold on to everything and anything that they can grasp at, right? Oh, I can change my gender. Oh, I can, I can be whatever I want to be. And that my feelings are truth. And they can be depended upon, right? If anything, the example in the last few weeks is that feelings are not reliable, right? Your feelings will stop you from working out. Your feelings will stop you from going to the gym. Your feelings will stop you from seeing your friends. Your feelings will stop you from seeking truth. Your example, you're living an example, right? I've set that example for my children, right? My last few weeks has been burnout, trusting in my feelings too much, and putting myself in a dangerous position, right? To stagnate. And where has it gotten me? It's a very deep funk, and it's very easy to just buy into that. And that is the danger, and that is one I want to keep you away from. And so I just want to say thank you for joining me on this episode. A bit of a longer one than I usually do. And I just wanted to say that don't forget the importance of the work that we do as fathers. This world and the things that I'm seeing, when I've asked it many times to the bedrock of what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? The bedrock I get to is fatherless generation, fatherless children, a fatherless society. We've lost our roles and our responsibilities as leaders in our families. And in that position, we've given up our rightful place. And this is all the failings that we're seeing in society comes from fatherlessness. And I challenge you. Are you doing the best of your ability? Are you taking care of yourself to the best of your ability? Are you being present with your children, right? Are you saving money? Doesn't matter what you're doing for work. You could be making 6 figures every single year, and yet if you're not saving money, you're not making much more than somebody who's at McDonald's but able to save $50 a month. That's an important fact, right? Put yourself in a position to succeed. Show your children what that example of life looks like. There's so many things that we can do better, and that's what I want to leave you guys with and encourage you guys with. Remember to be present. We're not here forever, and stay noble. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.